He's like, person who just likes to sit at home and talk to the camera. Okay. Hey guys, it's Amanda and welcome back to my channel. I feel like a lot of you guys really enjoyed my video on third places, so I kind of wanted to expand on that and make a whole video about one of my favorite third places, diners. There's no such thing as a great diner. The whole point of it is that it's there, and if you're lucky, open until 3 a.m. It's not purely utilitarian, otherwise any old vibeless gas station or 7-Eleven that sells hot food would qualify as a diner. A diner must first and foremost have a ridiculously expansive menu, breakfast, lunch, dinner, and at least a half page reserved solely for sandwiches. If you grew up in America, you probably had the diner. Not necessarily a special one, just the diner. The one your parents went to after church, the one your friend group decompressed at after a night out, the one you stopped by on a long drive because you knew it would be open no matter the hour. Didn't matter what it was called, Galaxy Diner, Broadway Diner, Neptune Olympic, something vaguely celestial or patriotic. The names were interchangeable because the promise was always the same. Bottomless coffee, laminated menus, a waitress who called you hun, and a clock on the wall that somehow never changed. Diners aren't about cuisine, they're about consistency. You can walk in half awake, order pancakes and fries, and feel like you're participating in something deeply American, the ritual of showing up, of belonging without needing an invitation. But lately, those spaces are getting harder to find. The diners that defined the landscape, the chrome siding, the neon glow, the smell of burnt coffee and bacon grease, are vanishing. The booths have been replaced by minimalist coffee shops with 6 stools and no refills. And when you do find a surviving diner, it probably isn't open 24/7 as the good Lord intended. The menu's been streamlined and the cup of coffee is way too much. It's strange. Diners aren't dying dramatically, they're fading quietly. The neon flickers out, the open 24-hour sign comes down, and suddenly there's a Pilates studio where your late night pancakes used to be. A diner is not just a place to eat. It's a mood, a smell, a soundtrack of clattering dishes, and the faint hum of a refrigerator in the back. It's chrome that's seen better days, a pie carousel that hasn't spun since 2003, and the low hiss of a coffee pot that never empties. A diner's beauty lies in its contradictions. It's both anonymous and intimate, vast but somehow leisurely, cheap but rich in character. The sociologist Ray Oldenburg, who coined the term third place, describes spots like this as the heart of a community's social vitality. A good third place isn't just meant to impress, it's meant to absorb. Diners did that effortlessly. They were the neutral zone between solitude and society. You didn't have to talk, but if you wanted to, you could. You didn't have to dress up, but if you showed up in full stage makeup and costume, no one would bat an eye. You could be a regular or a stranger and the experience didn't change. The diner didn't care who you were. You got the same coffee that tasted vaguely like cardboard and comfort. The first diner began as a hack. In 1872, Walter Scott parked a horse-drawn lunch wagon outside a newspaper office in Providence, Rhode Island, and sold sandwiches and pie to night shift workers. Within a decade, others were copying him. Companies in Massachusetts and New York started manufacturing lunch cars that could be shipped by rail, stainless steel capsules with counters, stools, and stoves built in. They were the original prefab homes of hospitality, portable, affordable, and democratic. But the post-World War II years were the real diner boom. America was on the move. Highways were expanding, cars were multiplying, and veterans were returning home with small business dreams. That's where Greek immigrants enter the picture. They brought up diners in droves, especially in the Northeast, and made them family enterprises. New Jersey alone had hundreds, earning its nickname as the diner capital of the world. For many of these families, the diner wasn't just a business, it was a first foothold in America. Parents worked the grill, kids ran the register, cousins waited tables. They turned comfort food into a form of survival. The Greek diner became its own genre, chicken souvlaki next to cheeseburgers, spinach pie alongside pancakes. It was multicultural before we had the word for it. Diners multiplied because they could fit anywhere. They didn't need big city real estate, a parking lot, and a neon sign would do. They were highway pit stops and neighborhood anchors, the same way Starbucks would eventually come to be. To understand diners is to understand class in America. For most of the 20th century, diners thrived in a sweet spot between fast food and fine dining. They were affordable, but not disposable. You paid a little more than a McDonald's burger, but you got a plate, silverware, and the illusion of permanence. Diners were a working person's luxury, a hot meal that felt like it belonged to you. They were open to everyone, but they carried a quiet dignity, a place where the waitress knew your order, where truckers, students, and retirees shared the same counter. That affordability was also their undoing. Rising minimum wage laws, inflation, and gentrification have squeezed margins thin. The $15 omelet isn't a ripoff, it's a cost of survival. But culturally, we've also shifted. Cheapness used to mean accessibility, something we shared. Now, cheapness is often stigmatized. The diner's charm, fluorescent lighting, laminated menus, slightly sticky booths, doesn't fit our modern aesthetic of curated imperfection. You can't make a diner aspirational without betraying what it is, which is why I stand by the fact that hip diners, like, no offense, Golden Diner, really good food there, but that's not a real diner. If you got lines outside of that place because your pancakes went viral on TikTok, that's not a real diner. It is a diner in name only, not in spirit. Anyway, while the middle class shrinks, so does the space between McDonald's and the farm-to-table restaurant, the exact space diners once occupied. You can tell people miss diners because we've started trying to resurrect them. Across New York, Los Angeles, and Austin, there are neo-diners, glossy design-forward recreations that charge $25 for a stack of pancakes or like $15 for a milkshake. Add $3 to make it boozy. They look the part, chrome, countertops, checkered floors, neon signage, but they misunderstand the assignment. These places are curated, not communal. And it's not that nostalgia is bad, it's just selective. We romanticize the diner aesthetic, but forget what made it meaningful, the familiarity, the regulars, the unspoken social contract that you could linger for hours without judgment. In the real diner, nobody cared if you were on your third refill or your second hour. Time wasn't money, it was conversation. Neo-diners miss that. They get the chrome right, but not the soul. There's an irony there. The more we aestheticize diners, the less we have them. We've replaced experience with performance. The diner becomes a costume you put on for an Instagram story. Part of why diners loom so large in our memory is because they loom so large on screen. From Seinfeld's Monk Cafe to Friends' Central Perk, which was basically a coffee shop diner, these were America's televised third places. They were settings for banter, confession, and comfort. Even the most chaotic TV universes had diners to ground them. In Twin Peaks, the Double R Diner serves cherry pie and existential dread. In Pulp Fiction, the diner is where chaos and normalcy collide. In When Harry Met Sally, Katz's Deli becomes a monument to human vulnerability and pastrami. Culturally, the diner functioned as an emotional reset button, the place where characters went when they needed to regroup, a neutral zone where plot lines intersected and egos dissolved under fluorescent lighting. There's something poetic about that. In a country obsessed with reinvention, the diner stayed the same. The same booths, the same ketchup bottles, the same waitress named Linda who's been there since the Clinton administration. That sameness became comforting, especially when real life felt increasingly unstable. But the cinematic diner also set unrealistic expectations. On-screen, diners were full of witty dialogue and existential breakthroughs. In reality, they were mostly half empty at 10 p.m. with somebody wiping down a counter and the smell of bleach mingling with bacon. Still, that ordinariness was the magic. But diners don't have to be extraordinary. They simply have to be available. Before I keep romanticizing coffee refills and all-night breakfasts, I want to take a quick second to thank today's sponsor because honestly, finding a good diner these days might be hard, but finding a good doctor doesn't have to be. I want to thank ZocDoc for sponsoring this portion of the video. I get a lot of compliments on my skin, which I really appreciate, and I get a lot of questions about my skincare routine. If you're wondering, what does this have to do with ZocDoc? Guys, I found my dermatologist on there. After years of doom scrolling skincare subreddits and trying way too many products that made no impact on my skin, I finally decided to go to a dermatologist so I could get to the root of my skin problems. That whole process opened my eyes to how easy healthcare can be with ZocDoc. It's a free website where you can easily search and compare high quality in-network doctors so you can find the right one for you. My favorite part is that you can see the doctor's actual appointment openings, choose a time that works for you, and click to instantly book book a visit. No phone calls and no waiting music necessary. And ZocDoc isn't just for dermatology. They have more than 100,000 providers across nearly every specialty, from mental health to dentistry, eye care, and so much more. It's truly a great search engine for finding medical providers, plus it's completely free. I use ZocDoc to find my dermatologist, and it was so nice to be able to see the reviews and what people thought of the bedside manner, and I was very pleased when I ended up visiting. ZocDoc also helps you get appointments fast, typically within just 24 to 72 hours of booking, and you can even score same-day appointments. Seriously, ever since I started using ZocDoc this year, I've probably had more doctor's appointments in the past 8 months than what feels like my whole life. I just didn't realize how simple it could be to find in-network doctors. So stop putting off those appointments and go to ZocDoc.com/AmandaMariana, also linked in the description, to find and instantly book a top-rated doctor today. Stop waiting, stop guessing, and start getting the care you need. Thank you so much to ZocDoc for sponsoring this. Now, let's get back into the video. Okay, so we've talked about the nostalgia, the history, the movies, but what actually happened to diners? Why, in a country that romanticizes them so much, are they quietly disappearing? It's not one single thing. Diners didn't collapse overnight. They eroded. A little bit of economics, a little bit of culture, and a whole lot of timing. According to Yelp data, the number of 24-hour diners in the US has dropped nearly 20% since 2020. In New York, it's 13%. In Los Angeles, it's closer to 35%. Part of that is the pandemic. 2020 was devastating for many places that ran on thin margins, and diners, by design, have thin margins. When lockdowns hit, they lost not only dine-in traffic, but the entire logic of their business model: volume, familiarity, routine. The beauty of diners was that they were always open. That was also their curse. 24-hour operations meant constant staff, constant energy, constant food costs, all justified by a constant flow of customers. When that flow stopped, even temporarily, it was like cutting off oxygen. When the world opened back up, it wasn't the same. People weren't out as late, they were drinking less, ordering in more, and eating faster. The late night pancake run was replaced by late night DoorDash. Even the most loyal customers got used to convenience. And that's the irony. Diners were already built for convenience. They were the original fast casual, efficient, affordable, familiar, but they couldn't compete with the algorithmic efficiency of Uber Eats. Then there's the money. For decades, diners thrived because they occupied that sweet spot between fast food and fine dining, affordable comfort without pretense. But that middle ground is vanishing. Commercial rent has skyrocketed, especially in urban centers. Diners often occupy single-story lots, relics from a time before land values turned vertical. Developers look at one floor building with a $6.99 breakfast special and see an opportunity for a 20-story luxury condo. In Manhattan, the classic diner footprint, chrome counter, parking lot, is practically an endangered species. And for owners, many of whom are aging Greek immigrants or their children, the math no longer makes sense. You can make more money selling your building to a developer than you could flipping eggs for another decade. Even those who stay face rising labor costs and food prices. One diner owner told the New York Times that minimum wage hikes and insurance increases have cut margins in half. Imagine paying $20 for a burger at a diner. That is like the psychological price ceiling. So the diner gets trapped in this impossible position. Too expensive to be cheap, too humble to be high-end. And for the younger generation, inheriting a diner isn't the dream it used to be. Who wants to work 80-hour weeks for razor-thin profit margins when you can sell the property and retire? The diner, once a symbol of upward mobility, now represents burnout. There's also the cultural shift. Diners used to fill the same social role that Starbucks or Sweet Green fills now, but without the branding. They were neutral ground, not home, not work, not exclusive, just there. But in an era where dining has become performative, content to be shared rather than experienced, diners don't photograph too well. They're too beige, too fluorescent, too real. We've replaced the warmth of neon with the chill of minimalism. I talked about this in my video on third places, but I think diners are the quintessential third place. They fit most parts of sociologist Ray Oldenburg's definition: a neutral ground, a leveler, a home away from home. Oldenburg said that third places were the heart of a community's social vitality. The diner was exactly that. an anchor point between isolation and interaction. You could go alone, sit at the counter and end up talking to someone, or you could go with friends and lose track of time. That mix, the individual and the collective, is what made diners magical. They gave you permission to exist in public without needing to perform. And that's something we're losing. Even when we create new third places today, co-working cafes, boutique gyms, social clubs, they're usually paywalled or purpose-driven. They require an identity to enter. A diner required nothing, just an appetite. The real luxury of the diner is time. Nobody rushes you. You can nurse a cup of coffee for an hour, and no one asks you to leave. You could read a newspaper, stare out the window, or just sit there existing. That kind of loitering is almost extinct. Everything now has an implied timer. Coffee shops with minimal seating, restaurants that flip tables in under an hour, even public parks where benches are designed to prevent lying down. The diner doesn't care. It isn't monitoring your productivity or engagement, and because it isn't trying to sell you a lifestyle, it gives you space to have one. That's why diners are crucial to community building. They're safe zones for everyone: night shift workers, cab drivers, broke students, insomniacs, and lonely people who just needed to be somewhere warm. In a city like New York, that matters. In a culture that increasingly sorts us by class, algorithm, and zip code, that kind of unscripted social overlap feels unusual. The closest modern equivalent to diners might be coffee shops, but even they've changed. Once cafes were conversation hubs, now they're laptop farms. Everyone is plugged in, earbuds in, eyes down. The social intimacy that defined diners has been replaced by digital proximity. We share space, but not presence. And the idea of a regular, the person whose order is known, whose name is remembered, has faded too. In a world of mobile ordering and app-based loyalty programs, being known is about to be automated out of existence. The barista knows your name because it's printed on the cup, not because you told them. At diners, that familiarity was human, not transactional. I think that's what we miss most, not just the food, but the feeling of being recognized without needing to explain yourself. Sociologists have long argued that the disappearance of third places contributes to rising loneliness and political polarization. When people stop casually interacting across class and background, empathy shrinks. The diner, humble as it is, acts as a kind of social lubricant. It forces proximity between people who might never otherwise share a table. The regulars become a micro-community. The morning crew, the night owls, the retirees with their crossword puzzles. It's local life in miniature. Without places like that, our worlds get smaller. We interact less with strangers. We lose the art of casual conversation replaced by comment sections and group chats. It's not that diners solved loneliness, they just made it visible and bearable. Loneliness today isn't about physical isolation, it's about the loss of casual connection. It's the absence of small talk and shared space that means you belong somewhere. Diners gave that freely. Now the only places that are open late are fast food drive-thrus or chain stores that don't want you to linger. There's just nowhere left to be, and that void has psychological weight. Now the only places that are open late are fast food drive-thrus or chain stores that don't want you to linger. And I can attest to this because every time I go to a McDonald's, it's like they're literally begging you to not be sitting there. I've been to so many McDonald's where they just like take the chairs away, or they like put caution tapes on the tables to deter people from staying there. And also, that's another thing about McDonald's too that I've noticed. They've like completely like you can't speak to a cashier at a McDonald's anymore. You have to be ordering from the kiosk. Yeah, we just really are not doing like the in-person transactions anymore. And I think this also like contributes to that debate of should cashiers say hello? Yes, I do think they should say hello. I think that's polite. I don't think that a customer should have to walk into a store and initiate the greeting. I think that is on the employee. This void has psychological weight. When Ray Oldenburg wrote The Great Good Place, he warned that life without community produces a lifestyle consisting mainly of a home to work and back again shuttle. He said our social well-being depends on a casual public life, not grand gestures, just the everyday ritual of showing up somewhere that isn't yours but still feels like home. He wrote that in 1989. More than 3 decades later, that shuttle routine has only gotten shorter. For many people, it's just home to screen and back again. I think that's why people talk about diners with such tenderness. They were never about the food, they were about the feeling, that low hum of life happening around you. Even if you didn't talk to anyone, you were surrounded by by the sounds of community. Silver on the plates, the soft murmur of a booth conversation, the squeak of sneakers on tile. You could be lonely, but not alone. This distinction feels increasingly rare. Because diners didn't just feed you, they witnessed you. They saw you at 2 a.m. after a breakup, or on a Tuesday morning when you just needed to leave the house. There's something quietly radical about a place that accepts you at any hour in any state. We live in a world that's optimized for efficiency, but the diner was optimized for existence. It wasn't aspirational or efficient or exclusive. It was ordinary, and that ordinariness was its grace. When a diner closes, there's rarely a headline, no viral montage, no tribute thread, it just disappears. A new tenant moves in, the neon comes down, the regulars scatter. But if you've ever been a regular anywhere, you know that feeling, the strange emptiness of losing a place that knew your order, that saw you through the years without really seeing you at all. And that's what makes their loss so quietly devastating. While we can build new types of third places, it's hard to replicate the diner's peculiar democracy. So, what happened to diners? The short answer, economics, convenience, real estate. The long answer, us. We got busier, more isolated, more digitized. We stopped making time for the slow communal moments that defined diner culture. Diners are not fully on their deathbeds. If you pass one, a real one, with worn booths and bad coffee, and a waitress who calls you sweetheart, go inside, order something, stay a while, and you'll keep a small piece of community alive. I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. I would love to hear your favorite diner memories and thoughts below, and I'll see you guys in my next one. Bye!